Roger had quite a hard time getting out of bed today. They had been working long days for weeks. He was a quantum physicist. He studied the smallest parts of the universe, particles, quarks and all that stuff. Complicated shit. He was working in one of the biggest laboratories in Science R.Us Corporation. He was in charge of a smaller section and his crew was 3 of the finest scientists in the world. They were secretly working on a project on the possibility of multiple universes. That's where the key was, the key to the great answers. His assistant was already there, adjusting the particle receptor. "Good morning," Roger said. "Good morning." Jonathan took a sip of his coffee. He had dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. The rest of the crew was expected a bit later, but there was no reason to lose time. They were onto something big. If their calculations were right, it could be one of the greatest breakthroughs in history of science. A peephole through dimensions never before seen by man. Finally, the skeptics would have to agree. Then they could start on the real subjects. Eternal life. Proof of God's existence. "Roger," Jonathan said after a while. "Roger, something strange is happening here." Roger ran over. They both stared at the computer. Signals. Photons they didn't send. Particles arriving from nowhere. "What does this mean?" Roger's hands were shaking. "Roger," stuttered Jonathan. Roger looked up from the screen. A creature appeared out of nothing, or many creatures, he wasn't sure. It seemed to keep changing form and color. It was nowhere and everywhere, present and non-existent, floating in the air and sticking to the walls like a nightmare of contradiction. "Oh my God," Roger said, but he knew his God had nothing to do with this. This went deeper than anything he'd ever dreamed of. This didn't even make sense. A hand reached out towards him. A finger touched his shoulder. He felt a tingling sensation. His shoulder started dissolving into a bright light, as if his very matter turned into energy. The tingling feeling became electric. Plain old unbearable pain. The light kept spreading until his body disappeared into nothing. Everything he was died with him. All that remained was the reality he used to be a part of.